Hey everyone, my name is Taps, and I'm so excited to share my interview with Tom Bilyeu. Tom Bilyeu is an incredibly successful entrepreneur, motivator, and influential person who's empowered millions and is fully embracing the crypto and NFT world. He actually started his amazing podcast, Impact Theory, with his wife, Lisa. Impact Theory has a massive audience. Tom's interview ability is phenomenal, and he's been able to connect with people who've had incredible impacts on the world, like David Goggins, Gary Vee, Raul Paul, and countless others. His Twitter, YouTube, website, and podcast links are all in the details of this video down below, and I highly encourage you to check him out. Now, on to the interview. Hey everyone, my name is Taps, and today I am honored to have a very special guest with me on the channel who is an accomplished entrepreneur, an inspirational mind, and an NFT crypto enthusiast. Please help me welcome the impact theorist himself, Tom Bilyeu. Welcome to the channel, Tom.
What's up, Taps? How we doing?
Great, man. I appreciate you hopping on. I was sharing this before we hopped on, but I'm geeking out. I'm a big fan of what you speak about, what you do with impact theory. And I'm really happy that you're able to make time to hop on and kind of share some of your insight for my community.
I'm honored to be here, man. It's exciting. I love this space, so I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's get into it. All right, I love it. So, you've really definitely made a splash into the NFT world and the crypto world, and I find it funny, like hearing back from your past interviews about how you really weren't an investor. So, I'm curious, what piqued your interest into crypto and the NFT world that really made you jump in?
Well, what brought me into crypto was NFTs. So I had been speaking to a guy, this was like 6 years ago, and he showed me what are now we would obviously call NFTs, but at the time he was just talking about digital scarcity. And I thought, dude, that's going to change my business forever. I was like, I could just tell it was going to be this watershed moment, and it just wasn't ready. So I then promptly forgot that somebody was working on this transformational technology. And then when it came back on my radar at the beginning of this year, I was like, we're all in. This is that thing. I already understood the concept and where it was going to go. So seeing that the technology was now actually ready for the kinds of things I would want to build on it, it was literally a hard pivot for us. The company now, everything we do through the lens of NFTs. And I don't just mean the art, I mean the technology. And so understanding what that's going to mean to community building, to economic realities around the globe, how people grow up thinking about the exchange, the value exchange between a brand and themselves. And so, we allocated millions of dollars to development, and just about 7 months ago started running very, very hard in this direction.
So it's full bore now. Are you able to share who that person was that got you in?
Yeah, happily. So it's a guy named Eric Pulier. Some people may know him. He's worked on technology in the space for a long time. And I think he's going to be announcing something pretty soon. Most of what he's done is focused on B2B. But the underlying technology seems pretty amazing. So, we'll see what he ends up doing with the business. But yeah, that was a guy. And then, so getting into NFTs, to, I guess, get back to the actual question you asked me, which is about how I got into crypto. So didn't want to focus on investing. I don't find investing very interesting, or at least I didn't. And I had one of the guys on my team here just kept bugging me about it, and was like, Tom, you've got to look at Bitcoin. You've got to look at Bitcoin. And I was like, David, will you knock it off with this? Like, I know how to make money. I don't care about investing in money. I don't look at that. I don't pay attention to it. It's a huge learning curve. I have no interest, right? Like, time is unfortunately finite. And so I want to focus on the things that I love and that I'm good at. And he just wouldn't let it go. And then when NFTs came, and I was like, okay, cool, this technology's here, we're moving into it. You have to learn about the blockchain. And as I learned about the blockchain, I was like, oh my God, this is what makes Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the cryptocurrencies work. So I was like, wait, now that I understand what this is, now that I understand the nature of essentially digitizing value, I went ham. And so I've gone very deep financially into crypto. So yeah, it is, I think it's important. In fact, I talk to people, I feel truly a moral obligation to get people to pay attention to what's going on right now as value is digitized, as more and more of the world is turned into zeros and ones, and the way that that's going to change our behavior, the way that it's going to change economics. It's extraordinary. And obviously, as we're in the middle of a 2-week lockdown that has lasted, going on 2 years now, that has poured gasoline on the fire of people searching for some like hypercharged community that they would normally get. Like people would normally be at the bars, they'd be at games, they wouldn't be sitting at their computer, looking at NFTs. But the way that the confluence of things have happened, from the digitization of just monetary assets to digital art becoming truly scarce, to people being trapped inside, and I think having a growing discontent with their government, that it just has created this fascinating moment where you're getting rapid adoption of something that was going to be adopted quickly anyway, but just really propelled it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, digital transformation is happening, and it's happening fast, and it's about time it happened with our currency. So, I mean, in our assets. So same sentiment here. And it's always wild when you hear someone like yourself, who is a very accomplished entrepreneur, say, oh, I wasn't really into investing. And then this definitely was kind of a light switch for you. So love hearing it. And it actually reminds me of an interview they had recently with another channel. And you said that you're invested in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Chainlink. And I'm invested in those as well as some other cryptocurrency. But Chainlink is the outlier there. So I'm kind of curious, why Chainlink?
I saw somebody on their Twitter handle that said, I'm a utility maximalist. And that sums up my position. Like, I don't have a philosophical need for it to be Bitcoin or Ethereum or Chainlink or anything, but I'm only going to invest in things that I understand and that I get why they would work. And as I think about our own NFT strategy, our strategy is really predicated on change over time, the ability to interact with the audience, the ability for the NFT to morph and change. And as you level up within, our gamified, ranking system, that your NFT itself should change. And so then you start asking yourself, but wait, how do I communicate to the blockchain that this is real? Like, how do I stop somebody from gamifying that? And then somebody was like, oh, there's actually an application for that. In fact, I think I heard a video with, Sergey, that he was talking about, oh, this is Chainlink, this is what oracles are. And I was like, yes, that is exactly what we'll need. So I was like falling over myself to go buy Chainlink once I heard him explain what it is, because I was like, for my business to work, the things that I want to do with NFTs will require that somebody deliver that. And so it was like one of those where you're like, oh my God, but how are we going to overcome this? And then 5 minutes later, you realize that somebody's already been working on this for years. So I was like, well, and this is exactly how I felt when we founded Quest. It was like, is this going to become a big company? I don't know, but I know I need the product. And so that's how I felt about Chainlink. I was like, well, I need the product. So I imagine there's going to be a lot more people like me.
Love it. And yeah, I think you're right, especially because crypto still as a whole, like, we live it, we eat it, we eat it, we breathe it, sleep it, like us in the space, but it's still very much emerging and still very nascent, right? So actual real hard cryptocurrency and blockchain technology that's actually functioning, it's a pretty short list. And Chainlink having the API to real life and making data more agile, it's as real as it gets. So that's why I had to ask. I was curious, and I appreciate the explanation. And I see a bunch of collectibles back there, and I like a lot of what I'm seeing. And I know that you have a pretty extensive collecting background on obviously the collectible side, and you've definitely spoken about manga and anime, and which is great from one weeb to another. But how did this collecting fascination begin, and how extensive is it?
I think that, so there's this thing that people refer to as the God neuron, that there's a region of the brain that actually makes some people more prone to religiosity than other people. And I always found that really interesting. I don't have the tendency towards religiosity, but like there is a God neuron, I think there's a collector's neuron. And some people just either get it. And it's like when you see something and you can make it yours, it makes you feel something very strongly. And so for me, it started with comic books. And so from the time I was 16, I started collecting comics, and I have thousands of comic books, and just loved it. And it's one of those where I can spend, it's so funny when I think about the return of my time, like what I should be doing with my time, building a company, you know, the financial returns on that are huge, but I have lost untold number of hours going through dollar boxes, looking for like comic books where financially it would make more sense for me to just buy the whole box and then be like, if I get 3 things out of it, you know, fine, than to spend the time. But there was something about like finding something rare and you weren't sure if you were going to be able to find it, and to have a goal. I want to get, you know, 1 through 10 of this series that impacted me as a kid or that I think has awesome art. I don't think of it as a flipper. I think of it as I have some emotional connection to this thing, and I'm willing to spend an inhuman amount of time going because I enjoy that process. So even when I first heard about NFTs, I wasn't thinking so much along the lines of like hardcore collecting. I was thinking more of it would trigger that sense of ownership, because I've been collecting pins on Pinterest for years, and I have thousands of pins. And it never quite scratched the collector's itch because I didn't feel like I owned it. So it was this really interesting understanding of, well, I have all these pins, they're categorized, but I never show them to anybody because I don't own them. And so there's a little bit of signaling in that of like, hey, you know what kind of art I like if you go and look at it. But with NFTs, there was not only the sense of ownership, which is what was triggering me early. And then as we got into the generative drops, then I got the collector bug in me sparked, because then it was like, okay, not only do I own this, not only can I collect this, meaning I can pick a trait in that collection and say, I'm going to try to corner the market on that. Like there's this thing called Astro Frens, and I know I'm talking to Omi fans, so you guys may not know it. But one of the properties of it is the forehead V from Gundam. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, all right, I'm going after all of these. If you have the Gundam nod, I'm buying these up. And then you've got that third element of community. And dude, let it be said, as somebody who's totally agnostic as to like what community I'm in, the Omi community is crazy. Like you guys are rabid.
We have a symbol.
A, you have a symbol, but B, I've never seen more energy pour out of a space than I did with people that are on Veve. So Veve made my radar really early. And I was like,
how early? Like, when are we thinking?
This is like, call it January-ish of 21.
Okay. Yeah,
so I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, like I get it, but they're like really limiting themselves to making it look like a collectible. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, but we're in the virtual world. I'm not so sure about this. And so I kind of shut the door on it and was like, they're focused on Western comics and they're making it look like toys. That's not really where my energy is going right now. And so I really focused on the stuff going on in Ethereum and OpenSea and really, really got into it. And then I would just hear people talk about it every now and then. Like, oh, you'd see the red circle, you'd hear somebody mention Veve. And I was like, you know, let me just look at what they're doing, because it's not that I don't want them to succeed. So let me see what they're up to. So I pop in and I'm like, wait a second, these vaults have gotten amazing. And then I was like, whoa. The creativity in this community is insane. Like legitimately, the creative energy pouring out of that community and what you guys do with your vaults is unparalleled. So I was like, all right, let's see who's doing what. So I put out a tweet because it got me interested in vaults. And I began to realize, okay, vaults are going to be the future. As I collected more NFTs, I wanted to display them. I wanted people to be able to see them. And I hit up Rare Rooms. It was like at Veve, at Rare Rooms, like, you know, I'm excited to see what's going on. If you're creating a vault in one of these, I want to see it. I got one response from Rare Rooms, and I'm not kidding. For 6 weeks now, my mentions have been inundated by people in the Omi community. And so I was just like, whoa, this is like never bet against a community. And what's going on in the community really, really blew my hair back. I feel like I've stumbled upon something that matters. You know what I mean? Have you seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Yes, long time ago. It's one of my dad's
All right,
favorite
so
movies.
there's this moment where he's sculpting in the mashed potatoes and he goes, this means something. This is important. That's how I feel when I'm in one of those vaults looking at how creative people are being. I'm like, this means something. This is important. As somebody in the NFT space, I'm like, do not sleep on this. Do not be confused. This is showing you something. It's showing, one, that if you give people the tools, they will be creative in ways you can't imagine. So there's one guy, he must have put one of the full-size DeLoreans on top of his vault so that electricity like crawls along inside of his vault.
Yep.
And I was like, that's insane. So I was so blown away by just the level of innovation that people are doing. So you get this limited set of things. And in filmmaking, in film school, one of the things they teach you is the limitation actually engenders the creativity. And you see that in the Oni vaults, and not the Oni vaults, in the Omi vaults. And so I am really curious to see where this goes over time. It hints at, it's a different type of person, I think, that's attracted to what's going on in OpenSea versus what's going on in Veve. So it's, this means something. This is important.
Absolutely. It sounds like you had that feeling that we all felt that's created all of this excitement, right? And I wonder how many have felt the exact same feeling that you had back in January, because I remember I came in February and there was 5,000 users, everything was available, and you know, it was still kind of new, and I was kind of like, well, I'm gonna buy this Batman, and that Batman shot up to from $90 all the way to a couple $1,000s, right? After just a month, because it grew from 5,000 users up to now somewhere around 400,000 users in a couple of months. So when you look at like NFT projects, what kills is utility and community and really having quality content. And that's what's kept me here and why I speak about it so much on my channel. So happy to hear, you know, that you see what we see, and maybe one day we could see a red O in Tom Bilyeu.
Yeah, there's no doubt that I'll start collecting stuff from Veve and Ecomi in general. And it's interesting that I haven't yet. And part of the reason that I haven't yet is I'm curious to see what happens with the following thing. So the figurines behind me, right? They're one of 25,000 maybe that were made. So they're not really that rare, in fairness, but in any one person's lifetime, unless they're a total geek, they're only going to see mine or maybe one other person's. So functionally for them, there's only two in all of existence. And so when somebody has to physically come to you to see the collectible feels very special. And it feels like I'm communicating something very individualistic about me. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what I like about what's going on in OpenSea. It's like there's so much coming out. And within any one project, there's so much variation that everyone gravitates towards certain things, right? Like I don't like zombie things, but a lot of people only collect the zombie version. So we each have like our thesis of, you know, what thing do we think speaks to us, the kind of thing that we want to see. Like mine is all Weeb Central, right? If your project has anything to do with anime, manga, if it even references like Astro Frens, if it references anime or manga, I'm going to snatch it up. So it makes me feel like I'm building a unique collection that's unique to me. What I saw in Veve was that I'm seeing people display the same things uniquely. And I thought, okay, that creates a certain kind of community where now whoever's going to spend the time to like place everything in a unique way, they're going to get attention, they're going to get the applause, they're going to be the people that are important in the community. But because that's not how I want to spend my time, I would much rather there just be a lot of variety out there. And then it's my job, because again, while I have benefited tremendously from the financial gains in it, I don't do it for that reason. So I don't want people to think that I'm blind to it or that I haven't bought things specifically because I thought it was going to go up, but that isn't my core behavior. So my core behavior is to find something I love and that I'm super excited about. What are they going to be doing 5 years from now? And that to me is the game, right? Yep. What does this look like in 5 years? I've sold maybe 2% of everything that I've bought. So 98% of what I bought, I just buy to hold, because most of it will go to zero, but some of it, they're going to do amazing stuff. And I'm only going to have access to it if I'm in that community.
Love it.
So that's where I'm like, what's going to happen? Will it just be that Veve starts putting out enough stuff that suddenly no one person is going to have all of it? But right now, if you're, really just taking an objective look, you'll go into somebody's vault and they'll have 35 copies of Batman. And they display it in a cool way. You go to the next person's vault. Now they only have 34 copies of Batman, so that is different. But it's like, it's the same core group of collectibles. And to make matters worse, when I go into one vault and then the next, and then the next, and then the next, I don't see the characters anymore. I just see the positioning. Mm-hmm. And so that for me is, again, this is important. This means something. Like, I'm blown away by it. And I truly do stand in awe. And I hat tip to everybody in the community that's doing something creative with their vault. But that's not how I want to spend my time. So now I'm just excited because I think that Veve's winning from a vault perspective. They're not ahead by a little, they're dominating. So now when Veve starts putting out stuff that's wide enough in variety that it attracts people with my mindset, then it's going to be game over, because everybody else is so splintered. It's like PC versus Apple, right? So Veve's got that Apple vibe of, we're creating a closed ecosystem. But because we have the closed ecosystem, there's just everything works. It works the way you expect it to. You can move the camera around. You can create the videos. You know what I mean? So they've created this incredible shell for all of this to live in, which gives you guys that secondary thing of being able to make those videos and show things off in a super unique way. So yeah, I think that a year from now, that Veve is going to suck a lot of the dollars and energy. But if I had to guess why there have become two bifurcated camps and there's very few people doing both, it's that reason.
Absolutely. And totally understand that, because I do think when it comes to the NFT community, Veve and Ecomi kind of have an asterisk next to it, right? Because it is that gated environment. But in roughly a month, they are making that migration from GoChain to Immutable X. And we will see a lot of the content that is in our vaults today in OpenSea. And when you look up like Batman or Captain America, the content really isn't there, because that's where there's a lot of power in having that brand and licensing and IP. And that kind of brings me to my next question. I know that you've spoken about your brand and wanting to be like the next Disneyland. How important is building out brand and licensing and IP?
You asked that question in a really interesting way. So it will look nothing like what we think of today as licensing. So 4 or 5 years ago, I made a commitment on camera, and I'm going to find this clip and replay it because I want people to understand this is where my head's been at forever, which is why we moved so fast into NFTs. I said, we will be the easiest company to get a license from ever, because the frustrating thing is the number of big IP that I've gone out to. So I tried to get the rights to the Matrix like 6 years ago when it was dead as doornails. Nobody was doing anything with it. I tried to get the license to that. I've tried to get the license to an inhuman number of big IP in Japan. And because I'm still pursuing those, I won't name them. But let me tell you, you know all of them.
I say I can take some guesses.
Yeah. So just really, really going hard, and have been perpetually frustrated by what feels like a lack of insight into what has changed in the mentality of the community. And I get it. And I know that there are going to be blind spots that I have, but I so value myself for my ability to reinvent that I really want to believe at 95, I'm going to be talking to 25-year-olds being like, you guys are acting so old. Come on. That's just like core to my ethos. But what's going to change in licensing is your community can now get wealthy off of your project. And that doesn't create heartburn for me, but it's going to for some people. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have a hard time making the transition from, I used to be able to pay you a kind of gnarly wage to get you in to create all this stuff for me. And you ultimately need the money, you need a job. You're just excited to be working on this stuff. And the sort of nameless, faceless corporation is what is getting the economics, or even worse, there are no economics, like in anime. There's no money. Like, that's why you see the production committees. It's like 5 or 6 different companies that are all like, oh God, we don't want to go out of business. So even though we created this thing, we'll distribute the risk so that basically the entire anime industry goes in on all the same projects so that as long as a few of them hit, we can stay afloat. And so now what you're seeing, take a Bored Ape Yacht Club, and I don't know how like oblivious your community will be to some of these. So if these are totally foreign concepts, forgive me. And if it sounds like I'm talking down to you, also forgive me, because maybe you're all super up on it. But the Bored Ape Yacht Club launched and said, hey, everybody, if you buy a Bored Ape, you have exploitation rights. So you can go do whatever you want with this. And people have done that. They've created mugs, they've created shirts, they've created animation, like they're doing all kinds of things. They're doing derivatives that you can sell as NFT projects, all kinds of things. And because of that, they have a massive community. And that community has turned them into a blue chip brand, like a legitimate blue chip brand. And they just did a secondary drop based on the strength of the brand, which was largely based on letting their community create anything they wanted. They themselves then were able to do a secondary drop that did $96 million in an hour. Mm-hmm. So this is crazy. Like, when you think about, what's One Piece? One Piece isn't going to do $96 million in an hour with their current business model. They could if they came to do NFTs, and don't think I haven't tried to convince them. But to get there, you have to be comfortable with your community not getting the cease and desist letter for creating something that looks like your project. Now, so that's the future, right? The community is going to have an expectation that they will share in the value creation. Okay, so as business owners, get real comfortable with that. Now, as business owners, you also need to look for ways. You're not doing this altruistically. You're not going to create these brands and only let other people capture the economics. You need to capture the economics as well. And I would say, compared to any one person, the company should be generating way more of the economics. Now, maybe it's less than the community as a whole, but it's more than any one individual. So now the question becomes, how do you do that? How do you run a business? How do you get to where you can scale? How do you get to where you can pay your employees well and attract amazing talent? So that dance is going to be interesting. Now, layer on at Impact Theory, we only tell one kind of story, a story that is empowering. Now, I've tried to hire writers and say, hey, write an empowering story. The problem is most of them struggle with it in their own life. So it's very hard for them to write a character that does it very effectively. So we've had a really hard time finding people and partners that understand our ethos well enough that they can create according to that ethos. Now, what I'm about to say, I reserve the right to go back on. These are early thoughts. I am thinking through a very complicated problem. But with that caveat, I will say, here's how we're thinking of it. That we want our community to run with this. We want our community to be able to make derivative projects. We want our community to be able to do fan art and make money off of that fan art. What we also want, though, is the ability to say, this fan art is verified. This bit of story is verified and now part of canon. We're super happy that this guy did it. Yay, we're stoked for him, but it's not canon. And maybe it's not canon because we don't like the way it looks. Maybe it's not canon because we feel it puts the brand in a negative light. Maybe it's not canon because we don't like where they're taking the story. Maybe it's not canon because we don't feel they understand empowerment. Whatever. Could be 1,000 reasons where we're still like, yay, we're not angry, but we want users to know if we put our stamp on it, that means something. And so that's how we're playing with the idea right now. And my pitch to these brands is I've tried, because we're building a platform. It's a NFT platform focused entirely on anime and video game art. So of course, I'm going to go to the biggest brands in the world and say, hey, you should be putting NFTs on our platform because we have that niche audience. And in that, it's getting them to understand, guys, you know that if you go on Pinterest right now, you'll find thousands of images with your IP, and you don't do anything because it wouldn't be worth your time and effort to even send a cease and desist letter. You'll hemorrhage money. There's just too many of them. But you're also not capturing any of the economics. And all you have to do is let them capture some and you capture some. And suddenly you will unlock millions. I mean, depending on the size of the IP, it could be hundreds of millions of dollars trapped in where that person doesn't feel like they can ever publicly sell it or go big or really advertise themselves. And I understand the struggle of the brand. They don't want to lose control of their IP. And I get it. And there is a fear. But you're entering an age where if people will just be raised on, I capture some of the economics of the brands that I support early. And if you don't do that, people just will be like, oh, but it's not as cool because I'm not involved financially. It's just, that's how the human mind is wired.
Right. No, I mean, that makes sense. And, you know, I mean, so it sounds like you're building out, you know, a collectible kind of world. Like there's a lot of different elements to it. And I know that you have kind of a lot going on. You know, for those who don't know, I mean, listen to Impact Theory, and I do have a Neon Future graphic novel from you and Steve Aoki, and love it. Love what you packed into it. And I saw that Tom Bilyeu is highlighted on the Immutable X ecosystem. So, you know, I'm curious, like, can you go a little bit more in depth on what is coming from you in this blockchain world and what we can expect?
Yeah, so I can get really specific on the first one. So the first one is the marketplace. It's called Renders with a Z, and that will be that'll be coming out in October. And it's from an artist perspective and a collector perspective, it's a little atypical because it won't launch with a lot of the social features, but we're already building them out. So certainly in 2021, we'll be releasing those features. So it'll be a place where hyper-focused on anime and video game art, where people will be able to come that share an interest in this, you know, niche thing, but it's very large globally, and communicate with artists, where an artist can actually build out a community, communicate with them, let them know what's going on, to facilitate that sort of handoff to their Discord if they want to do that, or in lieu of a Discord for people that don't want to have multiple places to go. And we're building out the technology that will allow them to really easily facilitate things like gamifying their community, that the NFTs will have deep functionality, that they'll be able to build things into their drop that, you know, you won't be able to do at other places. And over time, our commitments are really to three things. One, to the community aspect, so that an artist can build a community that they own, and no matter how big they get, we're never going to charge them to reach their community. And then the other part is AI, and making sure that when a user comes, because we're going to have just a wall of stuff. And as somebody who's constantly hunting for Akira, and I keep getting delivered Shakira, we want to make sure that, you know, we have really leading edge AI that is going to make sure that you get what you are actually looking for. And that's going to take time. So in the beginning, people will see a pretty typical, search delivery. But over time, we're making big investments into that space, and then doing those tools so that as a creator, you don't need to understand smart contracts. So right now, if you're a creator, good luck. It is unbelievably difficult to find Web3 devs that understand smart contracts, that can build a front end that ties into a smart contract, that, you know, can mint. It's really crazy. I mean, this is an utterly fascinating time where devs are able to, if they're experienced and they've had success under their belt, they can actually get a percentage of the project. So it is, it's really, really fascinating. And I think 2 years from now, that won't be the case because there'll just be so many devs. But right now that is the case. So, man, let me tell you, if you're trying to decide which way to go, if you're a developer and you're not sure what you should be learning next, Web3 for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't wait to see it. I'm a massive anime nerd. I'm a cosplayer. I can't wait to see what you're building. And when it comes to the content that's out there in the NFT space, there's really not a lot that's really quality yet. So, I know Veve is coming with an anime vertical. They haven't confirmed digital manga yet, but we saw digital comic book NFTs. But I'm happy to see, yourself jumping into this side too, especially since you're, as passionate as you are in the space. So, I know that we've been communicating through, Twitter, and I've been Twitter stalking you a little bit too. And I see some similarities because I do have a whole lot of NFTs outside of Veve as well. And we have similar interest on like the Bored Apes and Veve and Mekaverse, which looks exciting. God. I know that you're a big Mecha fan, but I'm curious, like what projects are you most excited about as an NFT enthusiast that are coming? I know you mentioned Astro Frens.
Yeah, so there's quite a few projects on the horizon that I'm excited about. We're also building our own projects. So we have two platforms that are in development now. Obviously, I already spoke on one. The other platform that we're developing, I won't get ahead of myself and reveal that one yet, but that's meshing what most people would think of as a really sort of new wave thing. But now with what's going on in blockchain and Web3, it's quite antiquated, but we're going to bring those two things together. And I think to a pretty profound effect. And I'm super excited. That should be late Q1 of 2022 or maybe early Q2. So very excited about that. And then we also have just standalone projects. So we have one coming up in November, so very close now. It's 3D full body. It's not a traditional avatar project. The art is unbelievable. The artist that we've teamed up with for this is ridiculous. So I think people are going to lose their minds when they see that one. I'm super excited. And then projects that other people would know, really hyped on Mekaverse. That's the one I tweeted out today or yesterday. I was like, I'm just saving all my ETH for Mekaverse. Yep. Like it looks ridiculous. I'm so excited for that one. They've done something really cool, reimagining them as like toys, but not the models like we're used to, but like a real toy. I don't know how to explain, like a plastic toy, but it looks so cool. So really excited about that project. The Sevens looks really cool. You've got what's the Afro one?
AfroDroids?
What's the
I bought
AfroDroids? Yeah. So AfroDroids looks cool. I'm excited by what they're doing. Anything with robots, basically. I'm all hyped on that. And then there's several things that I'm watching, but I don't know when they come out. And oftentimes don't know them so much by name. It's like I scroll through the ranking of OpenSea constantly looking for things that are either going down that I think are going to go up, or that have that sort of critical inflection point where you can really make something happen. But I remain hardcore committed to like Animeta's, which I think is a dope project, ON1 Force, which I think it's fascinating to watch what's happening. So here's my big prediction. You get this very predictable hype cycle. So you get everybody excited pre-drop, you drop, but it's not revealed yet. Everybody gets really excited, but they're tempering it. So it goes up to like 0.5 and it kind of stays around there. It doesn't usually go too much over that. Then you get reveal. If on reveal, people like what they see, it moons. Mm-hmm. And ON1 Force mooned so hard, and deservedly so. I'm so impressed with the art on that project. And then it's going to, as more and more projects flood, it's just naturally going to wane. And then it becomes a question of, all right, guys, this is where you build emotional attachment. Mm-hmm. Because you had people with, oh, I just think it's cool. You had people with, oh, I just made a lot of money. But now it's like, can you matter in my life? Can you tell a story or build a community that becomes so meaningful to me in my real life that I just want to be around it? And every single PFP project is going to be asked that question over the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. And 99% of them will fail because it's very hard to run a business. And 2% will transform IP. And you'll see the CryptoPunks movie, and you'll see the Bored Ape Yacht Club movie, and you'll see people with me bits running around the metaverse. And you know what I mean? And that'll be it. And my hope, of course, is that the project we're launching in November, which I cannot wait until I can finally say what the name of that is. We're committed to it. Like, we're a company, man, and I'm not going to put my name out there on something and then rug people.
Right.
So, in fact, I've started saying this when I do interviews. For anybody that owns one of the Neon Future pieces from my first drop ever, that's my Genesis drop with Steve Aoki.
26 days.
You're gonna be treated like a king forever. So, I would say hold, baby, don't sell.
Awesome. Well, I have I subscribed on my email list, so I have that drop ready to go. Can't wait. It's coming the end of September, right?
Are you talking about Steve Aoki's next drop?
Is it the?
I'm talking about one that already happened. So
I don't have that one.
We did a Neon Future drop back in June.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a while ago, but it was very successful.
Like rising up.
Yeah.
I saw that. It looks great. Beautiful.
Dude, I actually tried to buy that back myself. I was like, in fact, I was thinking today, I'm brushing my teeth and I'm like, one day I'm going to buy that piece back. We put so much into it, and it's the first thing we ever created. And I think it's just a stunning work of art. Yeah, I'll buy that back one day, I think. So, but we sold, because we did some additions, like one of, I forget, 2,500 on one, I think one of 500 on some others. So, there's people out there that will have a status in my life as, we build out the rest of the company. And, I mean it literally. Everything that we do even the university that we run, we now look at through the lens of NFTs. And so, having a gamified system where it's like, the more you're participating, the more that you hold, early access, airdrops, like Taps. I don't know if you think about this, because I don't know how much you see yourself as a creator, but as a creator, the blockchain is given, if you enjoy surprise and delight, the blockchain has created something where, imagine that you airdrop somebody. So somebody buys something from you, they saved up and just really bled to buy something cool, and it costs them $750. Mm-hmm. And that's nothing to sneeze at. And they're an 18-year-old kid, and that represents an ungodly number of lawns that they had to mow, right? I know what $750 used to mean, but they spend it on an NFT that I created. And then a year later, they held it. They really believe. They like what I'm doing. They want to support. That piece means something to them. And then we do a random drop, and they get one of the rare ones. And I don't know if you saw this with the ON1 Force drop, but there was somebody that paid $240 to mint. They got one of the one-of-ones, and it sold for $266,000.
Wild.
Now imagine being 19, and you turn $240 into $266,000. And it was a project that you loved and that you were perfectly happy to hold, even if it went to zero. And look, I'm fantasizing. Of course, it could have been bought by a flipper, and he's already made millions of dollars, whatever. But the number of people that you see in the community that are just like, yo, this changed my life. And so this gives brands that power, where it's like, if you're willing to share that with your community, to know that, yo, somebody in my community is going to make a massive amount of money from this, and be excited about that, and know that you can do that just by building up this rad brand and continuing to invest. And now you have things you can give to people, and it takes on a life of its own in the secondary market. Dude, I've never in my life been this excited about business. This is crazy. And I just want people to pay attention. And it's like, if they look at it and then they say, this is dumb, guys, these are JPEGs, come on. That's not really a statue of Batman that you bought. Fine. If you don't have the collector's neuron, I totally empathize.
Yep.
But dude,
I know.
This is changing everything.
I feel it as well. And that's why I have all the collectibles and I have all the NFTs. And I actually want to jump back to something you said a little bit ago, about what's happening with the NFT space, right? The Bored Ape Yacht Club, it's a status. It's, it's very much like, oh, I have a Bored Ape. It's my PFP. It's you can put that brand everywhere. And then there's what's going to happen though is 95% of what's hot and happening right now is going to fall off once the bear cycle comes and money starts selling out, right? And that's going to happen. So what most are now doing is they're pivoting to where they need utility, or they need to build a metaverse, right? The metaverse is the hot topic that everyone's going to build. And, I'm really excited for the Veveverse because I'll be able to be Batman or Captain America rolling around with my Supreme sweatband and all the other licenses that they have, right? But, what do you think in terms of these projects and like the metaverse that they're building out? Like, what is going to shine the brightest and survive?
Of the actual projects that have come out, or just conceptually?
I guess, what do they just need for a metaverse or utility to survive, to be, actually a thing come 2025?
Yeah. So for the metaverse to work, you have to have experiences that are actually enjoyable. Right now, the metaverse is just a novelty. Mm-hmm. And as long as it remains a novelty, you'll get early adopters and we'll all go in and dabble around. But it's like you walk around, you look at some things, every now and then you come across something, you're like, whoa, that's cool. But it's not a place like that you go back to and back to and back to. So for instance, I play Destiny 2. I play it essentially every weekend. Nice. And it's one of the ways that my wife and my sister and I bond. We all play together and it's just fun. It's not like I have to, put my business hat on or, turn around and be like, hey, but in 5 years, this is going to be amazing. So once that experience is just fun, now it's fun and you can communicate who you are and you can see yourself as Batman. But if I'm honest, I think there's a step before that, which will give people a massive, emotional hit, and that's AR. Mm-hmm. So I want you to imagine that you come to my house and you're there with your wife, girlfriend, friend, boyfriend, whatever. And you're looking at my house and you see the Batcave or Wayne Manor. And they look at it and they just see my house as it actually is. And they're like, what do you mean, Wayne Manor? And you're like, here, put on my glasses. Because you own something that I made. You see something in the real world that they don't. Or let's say that you have walking behind you the Dark Knight in whatever, version you wanted. But if I see you and I don't have glasses, it's just you on the street. But if I see you and I also have Apple AR glasses or whatever is going to be the thing, and I see that Batman behind you, or now imagine that I can have the glasses, but I only see the Batman behind you if I'm also into Veve. So it's like the signaling that we will be able to do where you could have a joke ever present or a nod to a community ever present and only certain people know and see it. Like that's where it gets interesting. So it has to be things that people don't go out of their way for. They don't have to suffer to get or to see. It's just got to work. And I have a hunch that the first thing that will integrate seamlessly is going to be AR.
Absolutely. You get me very, very amped up just thinking about augmented reality and immersive technology and haptic, being able to feel and see it. I mean, when you do throw on a wearable, you're going to see me on Planet Namek with all my Saiyan and Frieza friends behind me. Like that's very much the metaverse world that I look forward to. And it is like that really kind of cool club, right? Like, what I have and I know what you have, but not everyone else knows. And so I do think, that is definitely going to be kind of like that bridge in between as well before we see a living, breathing, fully functional metaverse within the crypto world. And I'm happy to hear the sentiment from you as well. And, I have a few more questions. I know we're getting close on time, but just crypto in general, we kind of touched on it, and I heard your recent interview with Raoul Paul, which fantastic interview, by the way. And
thank you. He's amazing.
He is absolutely amazing. Big fan of his as well. But I just want to hear it from you and have everyone else hear it too. How inevitable is crypto and what's needed for it to become the market majority?
Well, so the only thing that's needed is for it to get adopted, right? And when you look at, like Raoul said in that interview, that there is no technology in human history that has ever been adopted faster than Bitcoin. And Ethereum is on an even faster pace. So it's like that stat alone makes it feel inevitable. But the other thing that makes it inevitable is once you are a digital native, the level of this is a no-brainer that it becomes. So the only thing that will even slow it down will be regulation. And so if governments are like, whoa, we're losing our power, we have to get in here. And I think that they probably will, I'm sad to report, but they won't ever be able to stop it. But they will be able to slow it down. Mm-hmm. But just like, you couldn't keep marijuana illegal forever. There was just too many people smoking it. And they're like, look, we get to voting age and you guys are in trouble because we're voting this in, So I think you'll see the same thing with digital currency. Now, I will be very, very sad if they meaningfully delay it, because that would be the first time, like, I'm not a government conspiracy person. That would be the first time where I felt like my government was actively working against its own people. And I'm perfectly willing to say that everything that's happened up until that point has been accident and just the folly of being human. And I have empathy for that. But if the one thing that I remember as I generated more wealth in my life, and you start getting invited into rooms you weren't invited into before, but like, I'm a almost rural kid from Tacoma. So for me, I always feel like the outsider in the wealthy world, because this is not how I grew up. So I remember going, oh, can I invest in that private company? And they're like, oh, are you an accredited investor? I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, oh, well, you have to be an accredited investor. Well, how do you become an accredited investor? Well, you either have to go through all these hoops or you have to have $1 million in savings. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, wait, so the thing that would help me get rich, I can't do unless I'm already rich? Like, I don't understand. And so at first I just thought, well, I don't understand something. And then as I got older and wiser and wealthier, you realize, no. I don't understand why people aren't rioting in the streets over the fact that they have to be an accredited investor to invest in a company. That's fucking crazy. That is literally the government saying, bless, you're too dumb. We have to protect you from yourself. And then everybody goes, why do the rich keep getting richer? Because they're accredited investors. And so they're able to invest in something where the government won't let you invest in. The government won't let you invest in. That's crazy. And that's where they're generating their wealth. And they say that they're doing it all to protect you. Okay. Hey, I'm willing to good intentions. They have good intentions. They just don't understand. Fine.
Yeah. I mean,
they try to stop crypto. Now, to me, that is actively working against your people.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I don't think you can stop this train. And in some ways, I'm actually really excited for regulation, because that is adoption, right? Like, that's where you're like, okay, here it is. Here's how we're going to tax it, even more so, or whatever they're going to do. But then it's completely solidified, and we won't like it, but that's at least gives it more weight. And hopefully, even if they do delay it, it's just more time to stack sats, right? Like dollar cost average.
Part of it though is going to depend on how they delay it. So if they tax unrealized gains, that's going to be a real problem.
Yeah.
Because now you're disincentivized to hold an asset that accrues value, because you have to sell it in order to have it. And so you get into this weird paradox of, wait, for me to have this thing, I have to sell it to be able to make the payments. So now I have less of this thing. So it makes sense to me that the way the world works is, hey, you have an asset, it can accrue value until you sell it. And then once you sell it, you've got to pay. Okay, I think that's fair. I'm not a guy, trust me, I've paid my taxes. And I don't try to shirk taxes. I don't hide money. I think my accountants think I'm out of my mind, but I'm like, I do not ever want to look over my shoulder, and I want to carry my fair share. So I have paid. But I don't think it's reasonable to ask people to pay for phantom gains. No, are you going to credit me back when I have phantom losses? So it's like, yeah, they won't. So of course, now you're just getting dinged on phantom, gains. And that's, to me, that would damage the asset class enough that it would really slow adoption. Now, if the legislation comes and it's like what you're saying, it's like, hey, it's going to be taxed at this rate, and this is how we treat it. Cool, I'm down. Like, if they just treat this like any other asset, I'm in.
Absolutely. And I hope that doesn't go that way either. And, you've shared a ton of impactful insight for myself and countless others over the years. And, your inspiration is just, often very much like a challenging mentality. And I love it. So I'm putting you on the spot. What are some words of wisdom to all the inspiring NFT artists and new crypto investors and just growth-focused human beings who are listening in today?
All right, here it is. So the average human is the ultimate adaptation machine. You are literally designed to get better. What happens is when people fail, they go, oh, I'm a failure. Now, instead, you have to look at failing and say, failing is the most information-rich data stream you're ever going to encounter. Even the pain of failing triggers areas of the brain that have to do with memory and focus. So we are designed for the following process. I think I have a great idea. You try it, you fail. Then you go, ooh, it would have been better if I did this. You get back up, you try it again in that new way. Up, you fail still, but you fail a little better. And then you get back up and you try it again. If you're willing to do that fail cycle, learn cycle, grow cycle on a long enough timeline, you are going to win. The problem is that most people tie their sense of self and their self-esteem around being right or being smart or being good, or they worry that other people are laughing at them when they fail. And here's the reality. They probably are laughing at you when you fail. So you have to break that sense of that's devastating to me. And if you can, and you identify only as the learner, I value myself for one thing. I don't value myself for winning. I don't value myself for being good looking, for being wealthy, anything. I value myself only for being willing to learn. That way, if you mess up or somebody's like, you're an idiot, you can be like, word, how, in what way am I an idiot? Because if you tell me, now I can be less of an idiot in that thing and I can learn more. When that really, truly is the way that you value yourself, now all of a sudden you're just collecting knowledge, and you're collecting knowledge to turn it into skills. And skills matter because they have utility. Skills actually let you do things. And I will say this, and people will get it instantly. Kobe Bryant got so good at basketball by practicing that even though the most talented players in the world were paid millions of dollars to stop him from scoring, in a single game, he scored 81 points. And he has this quote, "Boos don't block dunks." You can get so good at something, no matter how much people hate you, no matter how much they want you to fail. Like in the case of Kobe Bryant, you can get so good, people can't stop you from scoring.
Wise words, and RIP Black Mamba. So, I mean, I know we're at time. I appreciate your time so much. This has been truly an accomplishment or an accomplished goal for me personally to have this conversation with you. And I'm so happy that you took the time to share your thoughts for the community. Where can people find you, and where is the best place for them to learn more?
At Tom Bilyeu on Twitter. I would imagine for your community, that is the place to be. If you want any of the stuff that I teach, that's Impact Theory University. But finding me on Twitter, that's the best place.
Awesome. Well, again, appreciate your time and for hopping on here. It's been a great conversation, and everyone make sure that you follow Tom, check out what he's doing, and we can't wait to see what you're building, me especially. Tom, it's been an honor, pleasure, and cheers.
Dude, thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun.